Okay, so before I start this video, I just want to say that I do think that breathwork is one of the most underestimated things in self-improvement. And I'm saying this despite the fact, I'm saying this about something that is actually like quite widely practiced in self-improvement. Like a lot of people do a lot of breathing habits, or they know about a lot of things that typically like improve your breath. You know, if you ask most people in self-improvement, they'd know about breathing through your nose. The idea that it's better to breathe through your nose than... Excuse me, there's just a motorcycle going past. They know it's better to breathe in through your nose than breathing through your mouth. Or most people probably have some idea about stomach breathing, belly breathing. The idea that it's better to breathe into your stomach rather than just into your chest. And sleep tape. You know, everyone knows about sleep tape. You know, this little stuff, you know, you put it on your mouth while you're sleeping, and it just means that while you're asleep, you can just breathe in through your nose, and it's just better for you, you get better night's sleep, stuff like that. But more recently, I've been more skeptical to a lot of these practices about breathing. And it's not because I don't believe they don't work, right? These things definitely work. I've experienced them working for myself. The problem I have with them is that I think for most people, particularly if you're particularly stressed, if you get stressed very easily, if you're very anxious, and especially if you have very kind of like that kind of banana posture where you kind of lean into yourself quite a lot, if you have these kind of attributes and you sort of overthink quite a lot and stuff like that, often these kind of habits of like breathing through your nose and breathing into your stomach, they're a bit too advanced. And they do help, and you will experience some benefits from them, but I actually think it's better to focus on something else, which I'll talk about a bit later in this video. But probably the first thing that I should talk about is why I've become more skeptical. Well, not skeptical, but why am I putting less emphasis personally on nose breathing and on stomach breathing? Well, it's funny because like I said, I use this sleep tape, and you know, I bought this whole pack that I had recently. I just bought this on Amazon, kind of medical tape, because for a while I was just using normal masking tape, and I just wake up in the morning and it kind of stuck to my lips quite hardly, and it felt quite uncomfortable, and I started to think like it's kind of bad that this artificial tape that's not really meant to be on human skin is kind of just sitting on my mouth all night, you know. So I decided to like get some proper stuff, and you know, I've been using it. Well, I've been taping my mouth like pretty consistently for about a year, but I've been using this tape in particular for the last few weeks, and I wake up and generally it's still on my mouth when I wake up in the morning, so it's definitely working. Like I'm definitely breathing through my nose while I'm asleep. But what I kind of woken up and I've started thinking to myself like, is this actually helping me? Like, am I actually waking up feeling any better because I've been breathing through my nose while I've been sleeping? And I've always just kind of taken it for granted that it has made a difference. Like, I do sleep better with sleep tape because that's what everyone says, and it kind of feels good to have it on your lips, and I kind of gotten used to having it on my lips while I sleep because I kind of associate it with self-improvement, you know, just being healthy, you know, having a bit of sleep tape on my mouth while I go to bed. But now I think about it. Now I start to think about it. I don't actually notice a difference when I wake up with sleep tape on than when I wake up without sleep tape on. You know, if I've forgotten to put it on for some reason, or if I'm staying somewhere and I haven't bought it. And you know, to be fair, sleep tape was never going to be like an enormous thing that was going to help me with sleep. You know, it's always one of those things that's like a small, you know, 10% is going to improve you. But even so, I really couldn't discern any difference that it was making. Like, I couldn't really have any confidence that it was really doing anything. It just felt like one of those self-improvement habits that I just was doing for the sake of it. And it's got me thinking quite a lot because for the last year or so, on and off, I've been sort of experimenting with something else, which is the Wim Hof method. And the Wim Hof method is basically this breathing methods that, I mean, I think this is very underestimated in self-improvement as well, But this breathing method is basically where you sort of hyperventilate for like about 30 breaths. So you kind of I'll just sort of demonstrate. I've done this in videos before, but just in case you haven't seen. So you just kind of go like that, right? You do that for about 30 breaths. And afterwards, you hold your breath. And you sort of do repeat cycles of this. And you can get up to holding your breath for like quite a long time. Like about 3 minutes you can do sometimes. And this is quite good if you want to go and have like a cold shower or a cold bath afterwards. It sort of gets your body in gear, floods your body with oxygen, and it sort of primes it for cold water exposure, right? So anyway, yeah, I've been experimenting a lot with the Wim Hof breathing methods. And if you haven't tried it, like, definitely, if you take nothing else away from this video, definitely try the Wim Hof breathing method, because it's so powerful. But yeah, anyway, I started doing this Wim Hof breathing method, and when I started doing it, I would just breathe through my nose, right? Because I thought it's more healthy to breathe through your nose. I've heard all this stuff online about breathing through your nose. But it's interesting because I remember reading Wim Hof's book about it, and there's one chapter in his book that's called "Just Breathe, Motherfucker," and which gives you quite an insight into Wim Hof's lively personality. But and this book is all about like how you should breathe when you're doing the Wim Hof method. And one thing that he says in the book is don't worry too much about whether you're breathing in through your nose or through your mouth. All you should really worry about is just breathing as much as you can, so you just get oxygen into your body, basically. And this is quite interesting. So I started breathing in through my mouth while I was doing it, and I started talking to my friend who was also he was like really into Wim Hof methods. Like he's gone to the camps where and like done it there. He's even like met Wim Hof and stuff like that, and he said like, yeah, just breathe through your mouth. Like it's not that deep. The real key is just to breathe like as deeply and as strongly as possible, so you just get as much oxygen into your body. So anyway, I started just doing it through my mouth, and I found that it was like really effective, and like it was much better. I felt much better for breathing in through my mouth. And so I used the Wim Hof method quite a lot, and I started doing it when I was working in sales. So I worked in door-to-door sales before I moved to Oxford, and door-to-door sales is a very stressful environment, right? So, as you can imagine, you get quite a lot of negative customers, whatever. It can be quite stressful, and particularly because, you're working under pressure. It was 100% commission, the company I was working for, so like you had to make a sale or you didn't make any money, basically. And so one thing I started to do, just when I was in like my most stressful periods, and I almost didn't really mean to do this, but I just started doing it. I would just start basically doing like a Wim Hof breathing method, like on the doors. And it's a bit embarrassing because obviously like people have got sort of cameras on the doors now and whatever, so it must look really bizarre. And my friends who were with me would always like be really confused as to what I was doing. But I would just take a few deep breaths before the door opens through my mouth, and I just found that it really calmed me down. Like it made me much more jovial, much more relaxed on the doors. And so, yeah, I started rethinking a lot of this stuff about what I've been told about breathing into my stomach, and particularly about breathing into my nose. And I started thinking, like, do I really, like, notice any difference in when I breathe through my nose or breathe into my stomach? And I started thinking, like, not really. I can accept intellectually in some sense that it's better for me to breathe into my stomach or to breathe through my nose. I can understand that it's better. But on the face of it, I'm not really seeing the results in myself. Like if I want to calm myself down and I sit there and I breathe in through my nose into my stomach, it wouldn't really make a difference. But if I just took a few deep breaths through my mouth into my chest, I'd feel really good. And that's my go-to thing to do now. Like when I'm stressed out, I'll just take a few big breaths in through my mouth into my chest, and it's like getting a cigarette buzz, basically. And yeah, it flies in the face of everything I've been taught about breathing, but yeah, it just kind of works. And I remember like watching a lot of First Man's videos, particularly some of his older stuff, and you notice in his videos, he'll breathe into his nose quite a lot. And he'll kind of do it in quite like a sharp, quite a sort of, like quite a sort of heavy way. Like he'll kind of be talking and he'll just stop for a second and just go. So yeah, guys. Anyway, like that, and watch out for that if you watch First Man's videos. Watch him do that because he is it's quite a characteristic thing of him. And I'd look in the comments and I'd always see people like saying, "Oh yeah, First Man breathing through his nose. You know, that's a nice healthy breath into his nose." But now I think about it, I don't think it is very healthy. Like the particular way that he was breathing into his nose, because it was quite, like I say, it was quite jointed and quite kind of forced. And I actually think this explains quite a lot because, you know, Chris talks quite a lot about dealing with stress as an entrepreneur, and you know, if you look at like his journey, he's often quite disjointed in what he's doing. You know, he'll be doing one thing 1 minute, and you know, he'll be doing the streaming platform, and then the next minute he's really into First Man House. You know, and yeah, he's got a slightly sort of disjointed focus, and part of that is like just the journey of being a man, and you know, exploring what works for you and stuff like that. But to be honest, I think a lot of it is his breathing. You know, it kind of makes sense that the way he's breathing is very sharp and very, very disjointed. And yeah, it's all very well him breathing through his nose, but it's still not the full picture. So anyway, the point I'm getting at is, I think the best breathing for people to do if they get stressed and they've tried these things like nose breathing and breathing into your stomach is basically just getting rid of these sort of preconceived ideas of what is a healthy way to breathe and what's an unhealthy way to breathe, and just get more in tune with your body. And just basically what you want to do is just breathe as deeply as possible, but in the most effortless way you possibly can. And I think for most people that is just breathing into your chest through your mouth, like that. And I do this quite a lot myself. If I just want to bring myself more into my body, I will just, and it's like a bad habit, and all these guys in self-improvement would say this is like the worst way to breathe. But at the end of the day, I feel great after I do it. You know, and maybe just try it with me right now. Just yeah, it just feels great to do it. And now this is like level 1 of deep breathing. And long term, what I want to do is like take this deep breathing further. So long term, I want to basically unlock more of my body, because I do think you are meant to breathe into your stomach. 100% makes perfect sense. But the trouble is, I think that can be too much for most people. And you want to start with the basics, just breathing into what you can. And for most of us, that just is the chest through our mouths. So yeah, I'll just experiment with trying that. And you know, if I get stressed, if something comes up at work and I'm stressed, or if I'm angry about something, or I'm going to talk to a girl and I feel a bit nervous, all this stuff, you know, it really helps. You know, because I used to like bear this in mind when I was going up to talk to a girl. I think, oh, like I'm going to breathe into my stomach. And I did fuck all, you know, because it was just kind of this weird, unnatural breath pattern that I was doing that my body wasn't used to, and it just didn't really help. You know, it just kind of made me overthink more. But now, like, you know, I was on a day to day. Like, if I want to, you know, I was a bit nervous going up to it, and so I just started taking a few deep breaths like that, and it just really brought me back into my body. So yeah, that's what I recommend people do. And one thing that I think is good practice to do as well is, like, maybe when you're getting ready in the morning or whatever, and you've got a big mirror, just look at your body and just watch take your top off and just look at your body and watch how you breathe, and while you're breathing through your chest. And because when I breathe in through my chest, my whole body kind of expands. It becomes this kind of enormous. It becomes this enormous sort of body. I kind of expand like a balloon almost, and I just have like an enormous respect for my body while I'm doing this. Because it's like I start seeing like, wow, I've got all this body that I'm not breathing into, that I need to. And yeah, that is the basis of it, guys. So, and another thing I'll say is if you're interested in these topics, a book that I'd recommend you read is The Enlightened Sex Manual by David Dada. So obviously David Dada, he wrote Where the Superior Man, which everyone knows, you know, really great book. But there's another book that he wrote called The Enlightened Sex Manual, and this talks a lot about basically like kind of these weird sort of Hindu, Eastern philosophy sort of sex practices, or, you know, like the Kama Sutra and stuff like that. But it has a big emphasis on breathing, and how breathing is basically how you circulate energy. You know, the Way of the Superior Man talks about it a bit, but this one goes into much more detail, and it's really enlightening. And one thing he says is like, yeah, if you're going to do sort of NoFap and stuff like this, if you're going to sort of do semen retention, you've got to learn to like breathe more deeply, because otherwise it's just not going to work. You're just going to have more energy, and you're going to be more kind of frustrated and more confused. So yeah, recommend you try that as well, guys. So anyway, just to wrap up, thanks for watching, and if you click the top link in the description, I'm doing some one-on-one coaching at the moment. If you're interested in this kind of topic in particular, you know, give it a hit. Or if you want to get more sort of direction in your life, you want to focus on goals, you feel a bit confused as a young man, and you want someone just to talk it through with you, just give you a bit of experience and give you a bit of direction, do get in touch. You know, I've be really great to hear from you, and yeah, see you in the next video.